The big round room was full of noise and angry voices. Ambassador Vector hit the table hard with his crystal hand, making a loud bang sound. All around the huge hall, different kinds of aliens were talking in their own languages. Some had 3 eyes. Some had scales, and some looked like big insects. The room was so big it could fit a whole football stadium inside it. In the middle of the room, a small blue planet was floating in the air, made of light beams. This was Earth, and every alien in the room was staring at it with angry or worried faces. The planet looked so small and peaceful, but it was causing big problems for everyone in the galaxy. Vector stood up tall, and his 3 red eyes got brighter when he was mad. He was the leader of a powerful alien race that controlled many star systems. His people looked like tall humans, but they had crystal skin that sparkled under the lights. He pointed one long finger at the floating Earth. "These humans are making too much noise," he said, in a loud voice that echoed around the room. "They keep sending radio signals into space, and it is messing up our communication systems. Every day we get more and more of their stupid messages about music and TV shows and news. It is like having a neighbor who plays loud music all night." Commander Zorth nodded his big lizard head up and down. He was covered in green and brown scales that looked like armor. His yellow eyes were cold and mean. His people were famous for being great warriors who had won many battles across the galaxy. They were good at fighting and did not like weak enemies. "My soldiers have been watching them for many years," Zorth said with his deep, growling voice. "These humans are very dangerous. They learned how to split atoms in just a few hundred years. Most species take thousands of years to learn that. They went from hitting things with sticks to making nuclear bombs faster than any race we have ever seen." The oldest member of the council was High Counselor Nexus. He had 6 arms, and his skin was purple and wrinkled like an old tree. He had been alive for over 400 years and had seen many wars and invasions. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together when he spoke. "This is not a simple decision," he said slowly, raising 2 of his 6 hands. Everyone in the room got quiet when he spoke because he was very wise and powerful. "Earth is sitting right next to our main trading routes. If we let these humans keep growing stronger, they might attack our cargo ships or try to take over other planets far away." On the small blue planet, a human woman named Kim Jisoo was working late at night in her science lab. She had long black hair and wore thick glasses. She was very smart and spent most of her time studying how tiny particles worked. Her lab was full of computers and strange machines that beeped and flashed with lights. Jisoo did not know that alien spaceships were hiding behind the moon, watching everything she did. Her experiments with energy and matter were giving off signals that the aliens could detect every time she turned on her machines. The aliens got more worried about how fast humans were learning. She looked at her computer screen and frowned. The numbers were showing something very strange. Energy readings that should not exist were appearing in her data. She thought maybe her equipment was broken, but the same readings kept showing up again and again. "What is this?" she said to herself, pushing her glasses up her nose. "This energy pattern does not match anything in our science books. It looks like it is coming from space, but that should be impossible." Many miles away in the mountains, Captain Park Minho was training with his soldiers. They were practicing how to fight in the forest and mountains using camouflage and surprise attacks. Minho was a tough man with short black hair and strong muscles. His soldiers trusted him because he was brave and smart. His radio started making crackling sounds, and then a worried voice came through. "Captain, we are getting reports from air traffic control. They say there are objects on radar that should not be there. The objects are big and they are not moving like airplanes or helicopters." Minho looked up at the dark sky filled with stars. He had been a soldier for many years, but something felt different tonight. The air seemed to be humming with energy, and his soldiers were acting nervous like animals. "Before a big storm, tell all units to stay alert," he said into his radio. "I want double guards tonight, and everyone should keep their weapons ready. Something strange is happening back in the Alien Council chamber." The discussion was getting more heated. More and more council members were standing up to speak. Most of them wanted to attack Earth before the humans became too dangerous. A few thought they should try to make friends with humans first. "The humans have something we have never seen before," said Ambassador Falcor, who looked like a giant blue crystal. His voice rang like a bell when he spoke. "They do not give up when things get hard. Most species surrender when they face a stronger enemy, But humans seem to fight harder when things get worse. Counselor Nexus listened to all the arguments. His 6 eyes looked at different council members, while his brain thought about all the possibilities. He had seen many young species try to join the galactic community. Most of them were happy to follow the rules and do what they were told, but humans seem different. I have made my decision, Nexus said, and the whole room became silent. We will send Vector's fleet to Earth. They will show the humans that resistance is useless, the humans will surrender, or they will be destroyed. This is the way it has always been. Dona Vector smiled, showing his sharp crystal teeth. His military force was the strongest in the galaxy. He had conquered 17 different planets and never lost a single battle. He thought conquering Earth would be easy. Because humans only had primitive weapons compared to his advanced technology, we will need only 3 days, he told the council. My ships have weapons that can destroy mountains and shields that can stop any human attack. They still use gunpowder and metal bullets, while we have energy weapons and plasma cannons. It will be like adults fighting children. None of the aliens in that room understood what they were about to face. They had studied human technology and counted human weapons, but they had never studied the human heart. They did not know that humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years and had learned every dirty trick and desperate strategy that existed. They thought humans would be like all the other species. They had conquered logical creatures who would surrender when they realized they could not win, but humans were not logical. They were something much more dangerous. They were stubborn and creative and absolutely refused to give up even when winning was impossible. The vote was unanimous. Every alien leader agreed that Earth should be invaded. The plan seemed simple and easy. Destroy the human military, show them superior alien technology, and wait for them to surrender. Then the aliens could take control of Earth and use it as a base for their trading ships. What they did not know was that this decision would change the entire galaxy forever. They were about to learn that being the most advanced species did not always mean being the strongest. They were about to discover what happens when you attack a planet full of creatures who think that dying for freedom is better than living as slaves. The meeting ended and Vector left to prepare his invasion fleet. He was excited about adding another victory to his record. He thought this would be his easiest conquest, yet how wrong he was. The sun was just coming up on Tuesday morning when the sky started to change. Giant alien ships bigger than whole cities began coming down through the clouds. They looked like huge metal mountains floating in the air. Their weapons were glowing with bright energy that could destroy entire mountains, and their shields sparkled with technology that was thousands of years more advanced than anything humans had ever seen. General Lee Sunwoo was standing in a secret underground command room. Deep beneath Seoul, he was watching TV screens that showed the alien ships coming down all over the world. His old face was calm and serious. He had been a soldier for 40 years and had seen many battles, but nothing like this. Get President Kim Hae-jin on the phone right now, he told his helper, and call every military base in the world. Tell them we are at war with aliens and we need everyone to fight the aliens. Thought humans would run away, screaming or surrender immediately like all the other species they had conquered before, but instead of panic, they found something they had never seen in all their wars across the galaxy. When the huge alien ships fired their first warning shots and destroyed empty buildings and big cities, humans did not run away in fear. Instead, they got very, very angry. Captain Park Minho and his soldiers were some of the first humans to fight the alien ground troops. The aliens came down from their ships, wearing armor that looked like it was made of liquid metal and carrying weapons that shot beams of pure energy. Minho's soldiers only had regular guns and grenades that should have been useless against such advanced enemies, but something strange happened. The aliens were moving in perfect straight lines like robots following a computer program. They had studied how human armies fought in big battles, but they had never seen guerrilla warfare before. Look at how they move, Minho said to his soldiers while looking through his binoculars. They walk in perfect formations like they are doing a parade. They have never fought an enemy that does not follow the rules. He smiled in a mean way and spoke into his radio. All units, forget everything they taught you in military school. We are going to fight like bandits, and rebels. Dr. Kim Ji-soo had run away from her laboratory when the invasion started, but she took her most important research with her. She was now working in a hidden underground room trying to understand how the alien weapons worked. She had computers and scientific equipment that she had saved from her old lab. As she studied the energy patterns from the alien weapons, she made an amazing discovery. The aliens' technology was very advanced, but it all worked in the same predictable way. Their shields that protected them from bullets and explosions operated on specific energy frequencies. If she could find the right frequency, she might be able to turn off their shields. This is incredible, she said to herself while looking at her computer screen. All their technology uses the same basic energy pattern. If we can disrupt that pattern, we can make their shields stop working. High up in space, Admiral Vector was watching the invasion from his huge flagship. The ship was so big it had its own cities inside it with millions of alien soldiers and workers. He had been feeling very confident about conquering Earth, but now he was starting to worry. Reports were coming in from his ground forces that did not make sense. His soldiers had weapons that could melt through steel walls and armor that could stop plasma explosions, but somehow humans were killing them. The humans were using homemade bombs, hit and run attacks and tricks that confused his highly trained warrior. Sir, his communications officer said nervously, Ground Commander Zenon is asking for more soldiers to be sent down. The humans are not acting the way our battle computers predicted they would. Vector's 3 eyes got narrow and angry. In his 200 years as a military leader, he had conquered 17 different planets. Some had better technology than others, some had more soldiers, but all of them had eventually surrendered. When they realized they could not win, none of them had ever needed extra reinforcements. During the first day of fighting, what exactly are these humans doing? He asked his officer. The officer looked scared. To give bad news, sir, they are not fighting like a proper army. They hide in buildings and shoot at our soldiers, then run away before we can shoot back. They use their own cars and trucks as bombs. They even throw rocks and bottles at our troops when they run out of bullets. Vector could not believe what he was hearing. Every species his people had ever fought had tried to win battles using strategy and tactics, but humans seemed to be fighting just to hurt aliens. Even when they knew they could not win, it was like they cared more about fighting than about staying alive. Commander Zorth was leading the ground invasion from a command post that had been set up in what used to be a human city. His reptilian soldiers were some of the best warriors in the galaxy, but they were getting frustrated and confused. The humans do not fight with honor, he complained to his officers. They attack our supply trucks instead of our battle formations. They use their own buildings as weapons against us. They even train their animals to carry explosives. What kind of animals? His second in command asked. Dogs, cats, even dolphins in the coastal areas, Zorth replied. The humans taught dolphins to swim up to our boats underwater and explode bombs. It is impossible to predict what they will do next. Back on Earth, Captain Park Min-ho was having a meeting with other human resistance leaders in an abandoned subway tunnel. They had been fighting for 3 days and had learned important things about their alien enemies. The aliens are very good at fighting armies, Min-ho explained to the group, but they do not understand guerrilla warfare. They expect us to line up our soldiers and fight them in open battles. When we use hit and run tactics, they get confused. A resistance leader from Tokyo named Yamamoto spoke up. My people have discovered that the aliens always follow the same patterns. When they take over a building, they always put guards in the same positions. When they patrol the streets, they always use the same routes. We can use this against them. Dr. Kim Ji-soo was also at the meeting. She had been sharing her research with scientists around the world through secret internet connections. I have figured out how to disrupt their shield technology, she announced. The frequency changes every few hours, but I can predict the pattern. If we can build devices that generate the right electromagnetic pulses, we can turn off their shields. The humans were learning that their enemy's biggest weakness was not their technology, but their predictability. The aliens had been conquering planets for so long that they had forgotten how to fight an enemy that did not follow their rules. They expected logical surrender when faced with superior firepower. Instead, they found humans who got more determined to fight the harder things. Became this was something completely new in galactic history. Most species fought to win territory or resources, or to defend their homes. But humans seemed to be fighting for ideas that the aliens could not understand. They called it freedom and independence. And they were willing to die for these concepts rather than live as slaves. The invasion that was supposed to last 3 days was turning into something much longer and more complicated. The aliens had better weapons and stronger armor, but humans had something that could not be measured by computers or predicted by battle plans. They had the refusal to give up even when giving up was the smart thing to do. 3 days had passed since the aliens first came down from the sky and everything had changed. The whole world was now a battlefield. But it was not the kind of war that anyone had expected. The aliens had better technology and stronger weapons. But they were learning that humans were very different from every other species they had ever fought. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Minji was leading a group of engineers and soldiers in what was left of the city of Bizan. The buildings were broken and full of holes from alien weapons, but the humans had not given up. Instead, they had moved underground into subway tunnels and basements where they could hide and plan their attacks. The aliens' biggest weakness is not their technology, Minji explained to her team while they worked with tools and wires in an old train station. It is that they always do the same things in the same way. They follow rules and procedures like robots. We do not follow any rules at all. Dr. Kim Jisoo had been sharing her discoveries with other scientists around the world through secret internet networks that the aliens had not found yet. Her research about how to turn off alien shields was being used by humans everywhere. In the city of Detroit, factory workers were changing car engines so they could make the special electromagnetic waves needed to break alien equipment. In Tokyo, electronics experts were building small handheld devices that could make alien sensors stop working. Captain Park Min-ho had been promoted to major because his guerrilla fighting tactics were working so well. His methods were being copied by resistance fighters all over the planet. He had successfully destroyed 3 alien supply buildings using nothing but homemade explosives and careful planning. They keep expecting us to fight like their old enemies, he told other resistance leaders during a secret meeting. These aliens have conquered many planets before, but all those other species fought in predictable ways. We are chaos, and they cannot figure out how to deal with chaos. The aliens had very advanced computers that could calculate the best strategies for any battle situation, but these computers could not understand human behavior because humans often did things that made no logical sense. When humans were trapped, instead of surrendering to save their lives, they would often fight even harder. When they were outnumbered, instead of running away, they would try impossible rescue missions to save their friend. Sergeant Yang Taeyong was a perfect example of this strange human thinking. When his unit was surrounded by alien soldiers in the mountains near Jeju Island, he did not follow standard military procedures. Instead, he used his knowledge of local caves and his memories of playing hide and seek as a child to lead the aliens into a trap. His weird plan worked and not only saved his soldiers but also gave the resistance important information about how alien troops moved and communicated on the big alien command ship floating high above Earth. The frustration was getting worse every day, Commander. Zorth walked back and forth in the war room as more and more bad news kept coming and his scales were turning darker colors, which happened when his species got very angry. These humans do not fight with any honor, he complained to Admiral Vector. They attack our supply trucks instead of meeting us in open battle. They use their own roads and bridges as weapons against us. They even destroy their own buildings to hurt our soldiers. What Admiral Vector did not understand was that humans had been fighting wars against each other for thousands and thousands of years. Every dirty trick, every desperate plan, every sneaky tactic that had ever been used in human history was now being used against the alien invaders. Humans were not just trying to save their planet. They were showing the galaxy what 10,000 years of constant warfare had taught them about survival. The resistance fighters had learned to use everything as a weapon. They turned cooking oil into napalm. They made explosives out of farming chemicals. They used mirrors to blind alien pilots and loud music to confuse alien communication systems. They even trained birds to carry small bombs to alien outposts in the underground laboratories hidden beneath ruined cities. Human scientists were working day and night to understand alien technology. Dr. Kim Jisoo had created a network of researchers who were reverse engineering captured alien equipment faster than the invaders could create new defenses. Look at this, she said excitedly to Engineer Park Seon-ho during a video call on a hidden computer. Their energy weapons are incredibly powerful, but they all work exactly the same way. Once we understand how one weapon functions, we can predict how all their similar weapons will behave. This was the aliens' fatal mistake. They had standardized their technology across their entire military. This made their Equipment very reliable and easy to maintain, but it also meant that once humans figured out how one piece of alien tech worked, they could counter all similar devices. General Lee Sun-woo had completely changed his approach to military command. He was no longer fighting like a traditional general. Instead, he was acting like an ancient guerrilla leader. His strategies combined modern military knowledge with fighting techniques that were thousands of years old. We are not trying to win battles in the traditional sense, he explained to his commanders from around the world during a secret video conference. We are trying to make this invasion so expensive and difficult that the aliens will decide to leave on their own. The psychological impact on the alien forces was becoming very serious. Species that had successfully conquered dozens of planets were now dealing with an enemy that simply refused to admit defeat. When alien soldiers destroyed human cities, the survivors would climb out of the wreckage and continue fighting. When they captured human prisoners, those prisoners would often try to escape, even when escape was almost impossible. Major Park Min-ho had been given a new job training other resistance groups in asymmetric warfare, which meant fighting in ways that the enemy did not expect. He traveled secretly from city to city teaching humans how to think like their ancestors who had fought with spears and arrows against enemies with better weapons. The aliens think like machines. He taught his students they calculate odds, they assess threats, and they make logical decisions based on data. We are going to be completely illogical. We are going to do things that make no sense but somehow work anyway. Private first Class Kim Nari showed exactly this kind of thinking when her unit was ordered to destroy an alien communications tower. The headquarters sent them a complicated technical plan that involved climbing the tower and placing explosives in specific locations, but Nari ignored all those complicated instructions. Instead, she drove a fuel truck straight into the base of the tower and blew it up manually. Her sacrifice destroyed equipment that was worth more money than most countries spent on their militaries in a whole year. The aliens were starting to realize that they had made a terrible mistake in their intelligence gathering. They had studied human technology and counted human weapons and analyzed human military capabilities, but they had never studied the human spirit. They had never tried to understand what made humans willing to die for abstract ideas like freedom and independence. This was something completely alien to their way of thinking. Most galactic species fought for practical reasons like territory, resources, or survival, but humans seemed to believe that some things were more important than staying alive. This made them unpredictable, dangerous, and ultimately unbeatable. Back on the Galactic Council's home planet, emergency meetings were happening every single day. What was supposed to be a simple 3-day mission to take over Earth had now been going on for 2 weeks of brutal fighting in cities and towns. High Counselor Nexus was studying the battle reports with his 6 eyes growing more worried with each passing hour. Admiral Vector is reporting that 23% of his ground soldiers have been killed or wounded, announced Council Secretary Morden to the gathered alien leaders. His voice was shaking because he was scared. The humans have changed their primitive weapons to exploit weaknesses in our standard military equipment. They are using their factories to mass produce weapons that can hurt us. The other council members were shifting nervously in their seats like students who knew they were in trouble. Ambassador Felkor of the Crystalline Collective stood up to speak. His body was made of blue crystal that rang like a bell. When he moved, in my people's long history, we have watched 847 different planetary conquests, he said. Never have we seen such rapid adaptation to superior technology by a primitive species. These humans learn faster than our computers can calculate. Down on Earth, the human resistance had grown into something that had never been seen before in the history of the galaxy. Dr. Kim Jisoo had created a network of scientists working in hidden laboratories all around the world. They were reverse engineering alien technology faster than the aliens could create new weapons to replace the ones humans had figured out how to defeat. The key to understanding their technology is the modular design, she explained to engineer Park Seon-ho during an encrypted video call that the aliens could not intercept. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it is standardized across their entire military. Once we understand how one piece of equipment works, we can predict how all their similar systems will function. General Lee Sun-woo had transformed from being a regular military commander into something like an ancient warrior king. His strategies now combined modern military knowledge with guerrilla warfare tactics that went back thousands of years in human history. He had realized that the goal was not to win battles but to make the invasion so costly that the aliens would choose to leave. We are not trying to destroy their entire fleet, he told his commanders. During a secret meeting in an underground bunker, We are trying to make them realize that conquering Earth will cost them more than it is worth. Every day they stay here, they lose soldiers, equipment, and money. Eventually, they will decide that this planet is not worth the price. The psychological damage to the alien forces was becoming very severe. Species that had successfully conquered dozens of worlds were now facing an enemy that simply refused to acknowledge that they had been defeated. When alien soldiers destroyed human cities, the survivors would emerge from the ruins and continue fighting. When they captured human prisoners, those prisoners would often try to escape, even when escape seemed completely impossible. Captain Park Minho had been promoted to major after his successful attacks on alien supply networks. His new job was teaching other resistance fighters how to use asymmetric warfare, which meant fighting in ways that larger, stronger enemies did not expect. The aliens think like computers. He taught groups of resistance fighters in hidden training camps. They calculate the odds of success, they assess the level of threat, and they make logical decisions based on mathematical probabilities. We are going to be completely unpredictable and illogical. Private First Class Kim Nari was a perfect example of this human approach to problem solving. When her unit was given the mission to destroy an alien communications array the military headquarters had created, a complicated technical plan that involved multiple teams, coordinating precise timing and specialized equipment, but Nari completely ignored all those complex instructions. Instead, she simply drove a truck full of fuel straight into the base of the structure and detonated it manually. Her sacrifice destroyed equipment that was worth more than the entire annual budget of most planetary governments. The aliens were beginning to understand that they had made a fundamental error in their preparation. For this invasion, they had analyzed human technology, counted human weapons, and studied human military organization, but they had never tried to understand what made humans willing to sacrifice their lives for abstract concepts that did not exist. In most alien cultures, Major Park Minho was now traveling secretly between different resistance cells, teaching them advanced guerrilla tactics. He had discovered that human unpredictability was their greatest weapon against an enemy that relied on computer calculations and logical planning. In my latest operation, he reported to resistance leaders, we trained dolphins to carry underwater explosives to alien ships that had landed in coastal waters. When the aliens detected marine life approaching their vessels, they dismissed it as irrelevant to military operations because their computers calculated that animals posed no threat. The psychological warfare was having devastating effects on the invading forces. Alien soldiers who had been bred and trained for centuries to follow orders without question were beginning to show signs of stress disorders. They could not understand an enemy that would sacrifice everything for ideas like freedom and independence. Instead of surrendering to preserve their lives, Colonel Choi Minji had established a worldwide network of engineers who were turning every human city into a massive trap. When aliens successfully captured urban areas, they discovered that subway systems had been converted into underground fortresses. Skyscrapers could be brought down at strategic moments to block alien movements, and civilian infrastructure had been weaponized in ways that alien military manuals had never anticipated. Commander Zorth requested a private meeting with Admiral Vector aboard the flagship. His usually confident attitude had been completely replaced by visible anxiety and fear. His scales had turned dark colors and his eyes kept darting around nervously. Sir, my ground forces are reporting combat situations that do not appear in any of our military databases, he said in a worried voice. The humans are using tactics that seem to have no strategic value according to our analysis yet. They consistently disrupt our operations and cause casualties among our troops. The aliens had encountered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. Every species they had conquered before had eventually recognized that continued resistance was futile and had surrendered to prevent further loss of life, but humans seemed to fight harder and more creatively the longer the conflict continued. It was as if the struggle itself was more important to them than the actual outcome of the war. This was a concept that was completely foreign to galactic military thinking. Most species fought to achieve specific goals, like capturing territory, securing resources, or defending their homes, but humans appeared to be fighting for philosophical principles that could not be measured or quantified. They were willing to die for ideas rather than live under occupation, and this made them the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever seen. The war on Earth had become much more than just a local conflict. It was now a crisis that was affecting the entire galaxy. Admiral Vector's invasion fleet, which was originally supposed to finish their mission in 1 week, had been fighting for over a month against humans who refused to surrender. Even worse news about the Long War had spread to other planets throughout The galaxy, despite the Council's attempts to keep the information secret, High Counselor Nexus called for an emergency meeting with only the most important council members. The big beautiful chamber that usually felt grand and impressive now felt scary and oppressive, as representatives from the galaxy's most powerful civilizations gathered to discuss their growing fear. The humans have started broadcasting their resistance activities into space, reported Intelligence Director Kexwell. His voice was shaking with worry. 17 different species in the Outer Rim territories have asked for detailed information about human fighting tactics. 3 species have directly asked about forming military alliances with Earth. The meaning of this news was shocking. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council had kept peace and order throughout the galaxy using one simple rule: resistance to their authority was completely useless and would always fail. Now, a single small planet was proving that even the most technologically advanced military force in the galaxy could be fought effectively by determined opponents on Earth. The human resistance had grown beyond anything the aliens could have imagined. Dr. Kim Jisoo and her network of scientists had successfully built their first prototype spaceship using a combination of human engineering and alien technology. They had captured and studied. We are not trying to match their technological capabilities, she explained to the international group of scientists working with her. We are trying to create something they will not expect, something that follows completely different design principles than their standardized equipment. Major Park Min-ho had made an incredible discovery. Human unpredictability was their greatest weapon against enemies who relied on computer calculations and logical planning. His latest military operation involved training dolphins to carry underwater explosives to alien ships that had landed in coastal areas. When the alien sensors detected the approaching marine life, they dismissed it as completely irrelevant to military operations, because their computers calculated that animals could not pose any threat. The psychological warfare was destroying the morale of the invading alien forces. Alien soldiers who had been bred and trained for centuries to follow orders without asking questions were beginning to show signs of serious mental stress disorders. They could not understand or cope with an enemy that would sacrifice everything for abstract concepts like freedom and independence instead of surrendering to save their lives. Colonel Choi Minji had created a worldwide network of engineers who were converting every human city into a massive military trap. When aliens successfully captured urban areas, they found themselves dealing with subway systems that had been transformed into underground military fortresses, skyscrapers that could be brought down at exactly the right moment to block alien troop movements, and civilian infrastructure like power plants, water systems, and communication networks that had been weaponized in ways that alien military training manuals had never anticipated. Commander Zorth requested a private urgent meeting with Admiral Vector aboard the flagship. His usually confident military bearing had been completely replaced by visible anxiety and barely controlled panic. His reptilian scales had turned dark colors, which happened when his species experienced extreme stress. Sir, my ground forces are reporting combat phenomena that do not appear in any of our extensive military databases, he said in a voice filled with confusion and fear. The humans are using tactics that seem to have no logical strategic value, according to our computer analysis, yet they consistently disrupt our operations and cause significant casualties. Among our highly trained troops, the aliens had encountered something that challenged their most fundamental beliefs about how warfare should be conducted. Every species they had conquered in their long military history had eventually recognized that continued resistance was mathematically futile and had surrendered to prevent further unnecessary loss of life. But humans seemed to fight with greater creativity and determination the longer the conflict continued. It was as if the struggle itself was more important to them than achieving victory or avoiding defeat. This was a completely alien concept to galactic military thinking. Most civilized species fought wars to achieve specific, measurable objectives like capturing valuable territory, securing important resources, or defending their established homes. But humans appeared to be fighting for philosophical principles and abstract ideals that could not be quantified or analyzed by computer systems. They were willing to die for ideas and concepts rather than accept life under foreign occupation. In the hidden underground command centers scattered across Earth, human military leaders were coordinating a resistance effort unlike anything in galactic history. General Lee Sun-woo had completely abandoned conventional military strategy in favor of an approach that combined ancient guerrilla warfare techniques with modern technology and communications. Every day they remain on our planet costs them soldiers' equipment, supplies, and credibility, he explained to resistance commanders during a secure video conference that was broadcast to hidden bunkers around the world. Our goal is not to destroy their entire invasion fleet. Our goal is to make them understand that the price of conquering Earth is higher than any possible benefit they could gain. The Resistance had learned to weaponize everything in their environment. They converted civilian vehicles into mobile bomb platforms. They used city sewer systems as hidden transportation networks. They trained wild animals to carry explosives and surveillance equipment. They even used children's toys and household appliances as components for improvised weapons and communication devices. Dr. Kim Jisu's scientific network had achieved something that galactic experts had thought was impossible. They were reverse engineering and improving upon alien technology faster than the aliens could. Develop new countermeasures. Her laboratories hidden in basements, caves, and abandoned buildings had produced their first working energy weapons that could penetrate alien armor and shields. Their biggest mistake was standardizing everything. She reported to the global resistance leadership during a video call from her hidden laboratory. Their weapons, vehicles, and defensive systems all use variations of the same basic technology. Once we understood the fundamental principles, we could predict and counter almost everything they have. The psychological impact on alien forces was becoming catastrophic. Species that had successfully conquered dozens of worlds were now dealing with an enemy that treated death in battle as preferable to life under occupation. When alien commanders offered surrender terms that would spare human lives and preserve human cities, the humans' response was to intensify their attacks. Major Park Min-ho had become legendary among resistance fighters for his ability to turn any situation into an opportunity for creative warfare. His training programs were producing human fighters who could use anything as a weapon and could find tactical advantages in seemingly hopeless situations. The aliens expect logical behavior from us. He taught new recruits in hidden training camps. They expect us to retreat when outnumbered, to surrender when defeat is certain, and to negotiate when fighting becomes too costly. Instead, we are going to be completely unpredictable. We will attack when they expect retreat, fight harder when they expect surrender, and increase our demands when they expect negotiation. This approach was driving alien commanders to the edge of mental breakdown. Their computers could not calculate odds or predict outcomes when facing an enemy that deliberately chose to ignore mathematical probability and logical decision-making. The invasion that should have been their easiest conquest was becoming their worst nightmare. Psychological warfare was taking its toll on the invading forces. Alien soldiers, bred for centuries to follow orders without question, were beginning to show signs of stress disorders. They couldn't comprehend an enemy that would sacrifice everything for abstract concepts like freedom and independence. Colonel Choi Minji had established a global network of engineers who were turning every human city into a massive trap. When aliens captured urban areas, they found themselves dealing with subway systems that had been converted into underground fortresses, skyscrapers that could be brought down at strategic moments, and civilian infrastructure that had been weaponized in ways their military protocols never anticipated. Commander Zorth requested a private meeting with Admiral Victor aboard the flagship. His usually confident demeanor had been replaced by visible anxiety. "Sir, my ground forces are reporting phenomena that don't appear in any of our military databases. The humans are using tactics that seem to have no strategic value, yet they consistently disrupt our operations." The aliens had encountered something that challenged their fundamental understanding of warfare. Every species they had previously conquered had eventually recognized the futility of continued resistance and surrendered. Humans seemed to fight harder the longer the conflict continued, as if the struggle itself was more important than the outcome. 2 months after the invasion began, the unthinkable happened. Admiral Victor stood before the Galactic Council via holographic transmission, his once proud military bearing now showing signs of defeat. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship buzzed with frantic activity as his officers tried to coordinate their withdrawal from Earth's solar system. "The human resistance has exceeded all mathematical models," Victor reported, his 3 eyes no longer glowing with their former confidence. "They have successfully reverse-engineered enough of our technology to pose a legitimate threat to our fleet. More critically, their psychological warfare has reduced the combat effectiveness of our forces by 67%. High Counselor Nexus felt something he hadn't experienced in his 400-year lifespan: genuine fear. Not fear of defeat in battle, but fear of what this small blue planet represented. "Explain the nature of this psychological warfare," he commanded. "They fight for concepts that don't translate into our languages," Victor replied. "The soldiers will sacrifice themselves not for territory or resources, but for ideas. They call it freedom and independence. Our troops cannot comprehend An enemy that values abstract principles over survival. On Earth, the victory was bittersweet. Dr. Kim Jasu stood in what remained of her laboratory, now rebuilt in an underground facility that served as both research center and military command post. Her team had successfully launched 3 human-designed spacecraft that were currently pursuing the retreating alien fleet, not to attack, but to make it clear that humanity was now capable of taking the fight beyond their home planet. Major Park. Minho addressed a gathering of resistance fighters in Seoul's ruins. "They're leaving," he announced. "But this isn't over. We've proven that Earth can defend itself. Now we need to prove that we can be good neighbors to species that treat us with respect." The Galactic Council faced a crisis that would reshape their understanding of power and diplomacy. Ambassador Falanuk spoke the words that everyone was thinking but no one wanted to say. If we cannot subdue a single primitive planet, how can we maintain control over our existing territories? High Counselor Nexus made the decision that would alter galactic politics forever. "Prepare a diplomatic mission to Earth," he ordered. "We will offer them full membership in the Galactic Council with all the rights and protections that status provides." The invasion of Earth had ended not with humanity's defeat, but with their emergence as a galactic power. Other species throughout the galaxy watched in amazement as the humans who had been dismissed as primitive showed them what determination and ingenuity could accomplish against impossible odds. Colonel Choi Minji was appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. Her final report to the United Nations summarized humanity's first contact with alien civilization. "We have learned that technology alone does not determine the outcome of conflicts. The aliens had better weapons, faster ships, and more advanced equipment. But they had never faced an enemy that refused to accept defeat as a logical outcome. As the last alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, humanity looked up at the stars with new understanding. They were no longer alone in the universe, and they had proven that being the newest species in the galaxy didn't mean being the weakest. The Council had made a mistake, but it was a mistake that would ultimately benefit everyone involved. The galaxy would never be the same.